Go. Welcome to Dev Q&A. It's not to a Dev. Welcome to Dev Q&A.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's always a weird. It always sounds weird, or could easily sound weird. It could easily sound like we're doing something important.
I think anyone who is here knows that we're not doing that. We've never done that.
Maybe not because of how we do these now, or rather how infrequently we do them. Probably still too frequently for some people. There's there's a lot of new people. Maybe there are a lot of new subscribers. That doesn't mean there's gonna be a lot of new people watching this. Some of them done well before, some of them haven't. Either way, what is Dev Q&A? Just keep it brief. So not every time, but most of the time, the devs Ghost Ship do streams on Thursdays and Fridays where they just play the game. Sometimes they don't play the game. I assume that when they don't play the game, they get less questions about Deep Rock. I imagine, because sometimes they play other stuff. But I also assume those streams aren't ignored either. But there's an article on the wiki that basically collects, I think not actually all of, but most of the sort of questions and answers. So there's a question from the audience or a suggestion from the audience, and then one of the devs on the stream will answer it, and that gets documented, and then we get our grubby mitts on it. But it used to be just doing that every month, which was a bit much. For the main reason being that 90% of the suggestions and questions aren't of any real value, and therefore neither are the answers. So what we're doing now is every 6 months, which basically means it should be easier. Frankly, I do think some of this might even be shorter than some of the individual months before, which is kind of crazy. But that's kind of the point. I've tried my best to fish out what I think could be some of the most insightful or just interesting answers, and they give us some kind of insight into sort of Ghost Ship's thoughts and sort of practices and strange sort of principles that we sometimes disagree with quite heavily. But frankly, this is probably going to be the least important one we've ever done.
Right.
Because let's be honest, when it comes now that we're doing it in 6 month periods, that's supposed to obviously allow it to encompass a lot more just happenings in sort of the sphere of Ghost Ship's developed game, like Deep Rock and Road Core. But there's an argument aside from season 5. This is probably highly uneventful, and the reason why season 5 almost doesn't count for this kind of thing is because obviously this includes stuff that was sort of prior season 5. Therefore, anything that suggests something that was in season 5 isn't in here. So it's sort of everything else that surrounds it. And that's why we need to jump straight in and see if we can salvage anything from these questions and answers. Tyler will be the question asker. It's a bit of role play. Tyler is every audience member rolled into one. I am every dev rolled into one.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
I can't read any of it though right now.
Okay, well now as I just moved the slide.
Yeah, it's blurry.
All right, you'll need to let me know every time, obviously, but with promptly as well. Okay, let's begin. Obviously, you also have the dates on the right and also sort of categories on the left, but we won't mention the category necessarily. Begin!
Filter for unseasoned cosmetics only.
I know that was prompted, but it's I feel like we need to say suggestion, but you don't have to. Yeah,
I don't feel the need to do that at all.
Sounds like a good idea, but even the filters coming in season 5 took a tremendous amount of work. Shout out to Amanda. Yeah, shout out, because that system is pretty great. But this is probably the one big one that it doesn't have. Obviously, it's got everything. It's got a filter for each individual season, and obviously filters for holiday events. These are sort of the broad filters for every cosmetic, basically, in a given category. But I would say this is kind of missing, isn't it? It's a big one, but it's also the biggest one possible. It's the biggest category it would be, as far as the cosmetics go. Just to have everything that isn't from a season. And then for, I guess, a holiday event, I don't know if it would be if there would be an easier way to do it, which would be like having you select ones that you don't want to see. Although, is it not? I'm kind of forgetting how the system works. All I know is that clearly this is a suggestion that I don't think is how it works in the game. I'm pretty sure. But if possible, it would work. It would be pretty great, especially because unseasoned is quite a pronounced thing anyway. That's literally what the season is called when you select it. It's called unseasoned. It's even got its own sort of logo, so it would definitely make sense, wouldn't it?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the a tremendous amount of work is like coding it all together, or just rifling through the hundreds and hundreds of cosmetics, figuring out which one came from where and what it should be in.
That depends.
But
Yeah,
that's probably
it depends on whether the game's tracking that kind of thing naturally or not. Like, it could very easily not be. Like, I don't, what about implementing a cosmetic item involves like attaching it to when it came out? I don't know. I know nothing. I was about to say I know nothing about coding. That's not technically true. But I don't know enough to know how that kind of thing would work. So it is possible they have to go through every individual thing. And yeah, that would be a fair amount of work for sure. But it would be cool. So that is a lot of stuff, by the way. You're going to notice a lot of stuff would be cool, but is a lot of work. So when it comes to things like are really worth doing, though, I think it's more worth talking about. Like, this is the kind of thing where if it is a lot of work, I'm not gonna, harper on about it. It's not high priority. Let's be honest. So let's move on.
cheaper resupplies / more nitra for Has 5 Plus.
I love the voice you're doing. It's great. No plans for either. They don't want to touch too many of the systems with Hazard 5 Plus. So I mainly just wanted to throw this in here because it's something that people do suggest fairly often. Is sort of new elements to that. I will say, what the guy's suggesting here, or the person, sorry, is not what. Yeah, which is not what should be done. However, I think the opposite could be interesting. I'm a big fan. We said this before. I'm a big fan of adding more factors to Hazard 5 Plus, and more expensive resupplies could be one, or rather, something that alters like helpful stuff's scarcity. Which would make there be less nitro and red sugar.
Oh, there's already no red sugar, so that's not going to change much.
You sound like the Chud things where it's like nothing ever happens.
Yeah,
it's like there's never any red sugar. Well, there is. It's just all on the ceiling.
Yeah. But in all fairness, that answer does kind of like relate to what you want. You don't really want to touch too many systems with Has 5 Plus. Like, they don't want to do too much with it. That could be related. But either way, I don't think anyone wants it to make it easier. I don't think that was the point.
It's really...
Plus, you don't really need it. Like, more nitro doesn't seem like it's been that big of a problem.
Yeah, having literally not enough nitro tends to be more infrequent. Like, that's more unlikely than to have too much, basically. Also, my brother is playing guitar extremely loudly in the living room.
As long as it's not copyrighted.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's like original music. So
then as long as he doesn't copyright us, we'll be alright.
Yeah, but it's not coming through, but it's that I can hear it. Like, and there's
as long as
nothing
he
I can do
doesn't
about it.
copyright your ears, we'll be alright.
My ears are copyrighted. They're all yours.
Oh. Oh.
Anyway, next.
First person spectating.
If we mean joining a game and flying around in first person, then no plan. No, they don't mean that. Now, this is sometimes where they really get things wrong, because I think it's very, very obvious that's not what's being asked. I think this is, right? Because I think this is when you go down, I believe. And then you go to first person.
Player's POV.
Yeah. Which, whether or not, regardless of response, I think that's a fine idea. That is very much so the kind of thing where it's like, if it's easy to do, why not? But also, if it's like any amount of work, then maybe don't bother. Because honestly, I would rather them pour the effort into potentially making third person a thing, but I can't imagine that happening for Deep Rock. But there you go, easy stuff.
More dreads.
Now, Mike would love to, but they take a lot of time to design. Now, I put this in here because there's going to be like 4 more of these, and that's why we don't need to linger on them necessarily. I want to make a point though. It sort of becomes evident over time that they kind of want to do another one, and so I think that is a very extremely this leans into some of the more tantalizing aspects that we can get from this, which is things that might go into future updates. And I think when it comes to season 6, the list involves certain obvious things. For example, something that people need to it's not really in here at all, and we've been here so many times, is stuff to do with like the perk system. That is something that is on that list. And it was almost going to be something they did for season 5. So that kind of thing you just need to hold fire on. Dread hasn't really been mentioned, but with how much it's mentioned in here, I think it's very evident that they want to do another one, and it would make a lot of sense, I think. Just sort of a natural progression, especially if we get biomes in season 6 as well. It's like literally mirroring the update that added biomes in Dreadnoughts, but in the form of a season. So it would be kind of cool. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Unique voice lines for the vampire perk.
No plans. Maybe at some point. Now, obviously, I just said something about perks, but I think this is actually genuinely a cool idea. As far as when they get around to doing something with perks, introducing actual voice lines that pertain to what you're doing. Like, imagine if there were actual Berserker voice lines, for example. Like battle cries, things like that.
Yeah.
Or lots of them, like even dashing, they could say something silly, or hover. A lot of the active perks could really get a lot out. Like even field medic kind of really should have sort of unique revive voice lines and things like that. So that's just something to add on to potential perk work being done in the future. What would you say a good one would be for vampire? Go on. Use your creative mind.
Tasty blood.
Yeah,
that
pretty
creative
much.
enough for you?
Yeah. The blood of my enemies makes me stronger. Something like that.
I think tasty blood. I think that's better.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Random chance for a dwarf to scream for no reason.
Sounds hilarious. Great idea. I really want this. It would be. It's like It would have like a similar effect to the the thing that I've never experienced in Terraria. The owls. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I would love something like that. They just scream like insane. It might not even be like the actual guy who does the voice. It's just some random blood curdling screech. That'd be for Berserker.
No, but then it would have a reason.
Oh.
It would be at random intervals for no reason whatsoever. They just go.
Oh fuck! Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's great. I'm glad we all agree on that.
Toggle beard on armor.
Not planned, but would be cool. It would be cool. So this is in reference to most armors have elements sort of in the chest area that basically get altered depending on the size of your beard, and therefore remain in the more complex version whenever you have like a full mask helmet equipped. Basically, the idea I think the person suggesting is that should just be a toggle just across the board, and they're right. I appreciate like the concept in general, and it does work fairly well in most examples where it makes sense what's being removed. But it shows that there are basically 2 alternate versions for most armors, and also the difference in the fact that some armors don't have this feature is not an argument either, because obviously we have that exact thing with sleeveless armor, where not all of them have the option. So this would be something that's just a very justifiable addition. Would be a toggle for the chest area alternate armor, just for every armor that has it, and therefore it's completely up to you, right? I think that should be completely up to the player. I don't think that's like anyone would argue against that.
More customization is never bad.
No, and this is like a potential for customization that's kind of already built into the game anyway. It kind of just takes a little bit of work to get it sort of as a feature, but the options are already there. Like what the customization options would be are already there. So, yeah, genuinely worth looking into. And we do get stuff like that when we do get updates. These are the kind of things that they do sort of tend to do, like the filtering or the sleeveless armor, similar type of thing. So, would love to see it. Now we get to move on to the next page.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I forgot to put that in there. It's quite a big one.
Small animated series.
They never considered it seriously. The amount of supervision required to ensure they like it would take time away from the actual game. Yes, it probably would, although I want to sort of talk a bit about that, as it feels like it comes up a bit too much, where I understand why that would be the case, but I feel like it's sort of holding them back a lot of the time, is how much they would let sort of third-party endeavors take away from the game, whereas it shouldn't. The process should be finding a studio or creative people that you trust, so that you wouldn't have to supervise it that closely. Honestly, that in itself would take effort, but that's how you get into a good process, and it shouldn't
The
take.
thing is,
Yeah,
it has implications either way on like Survivor,
the publishing stuff. Yeah,
because
absolutely. Mainly, especially Survivor.
it's like did it take so much supervision that it took away from the game? Or is there a way where they don't need to supervise and worry about it too much and just let them do what they want to do?
Yeah, a good example would be if there were to ever be a Deep Rock Galactic comic series. You would simply need to find two people who you could trust with the IP, and then you wouldn't need to talk to them while they're doing it.
Yeah. I like the sound of that for some reason. Oh,
I
well.
mean, I don't. I guess this doesn't need to be a serious discussion. I can imagine we would entertain that. You would entertain that idea at least, right? Just in hypothetical nonsense scenario where
There's nothing stopping us from doing it if we wanted
from
to.
doing it, but I don't think I. Well, I don't know if I would be bothered to do it if I didn't have a good reason to. Anyway, I'm trying to think of though, because honestly, animated series seem to be the most common sort form of video game adaptation, especially the most common form that is liked. And I can imagine it. I think honestly, I wouldn't want it to be like necessarily a series, but a stop motion Deep Rock like short film would go pretty bananas. I feel like those guys, the dwarf designs really lend themselves to stop motion. Do you know what I mean though? Especially with like the hair, the way the hair's done, it's like it is kind of like it's a static model, and in a way that lends itself to looking like stop motion could look very accurate to the dwarf models because it's not like their hair is like individual strands anyway, that kind of thing. And sort of like they almost have like sculpted looking bodies and faces as well, which is honestly is cool. I know that's owed to sort of graphical fidelity and that kind of thing, but I like it. So, oh my god, he just started playing louder.
It's a UI for weapon cosmetics.
No changes coming for the weapon framework / paint job UI. Lie. I just want to point that out. That's just a lie because that happened. That's just a lie. They added the ability to sort of move all the upgrade stuff out the way. So yeah, that objectively happened. And they went even better. It's even better because it's a bit more granular than that, because you can also remove the pop-up that shows all the stats. You can have that tucked away if you want, and still keep the upgrade selection stuff. But you can have it all go away. So they definitely did improve the UI for weapon cosmetics, unless they were thinking of when they gave the response. Unless they were thinking in game. I don't know, but yeah, this definitely happened, and I want to say I appreciate it. It has been very useful for very specific videos to be able to move that stuff out the way. And it was a long time coming, frankly.
Season 5 come out?
After this was asked. So this is a
Right.
5th, which is
Not much though,
May.
right?
It was next month. About a month from when this was asked. Are you wondering if it was
Right.
like actually wasn't a thing at the time?
I just thought that the update came out a lot longer ago than it did.
Well, it's 4
Like,
months ago now.
I suppose. All right. Depositing prioritizes nitro first.
No.
More elite enemies.
Yeah, actually, fuck it. We don't. Any of the new ones could potentially be elite. Probably, it would be cool, but it's not in season 5, and they're not. Okay, I don't know what. I almost didn't read the second half of that response, but the first part is obviously both annoying and tantalizing at the same time. It's like, yeah, any of the new ones could potentially be elite, but they're not. Honestly, all of the ones that were not literally all of them, but like the Stingtail, the Spreader, and the Stalker are all the types of enemies that would have gotten elite variants, and that just is so painful. You know, it's painful that that is a system that they kind of just fumbled, because I think if it actually had the same power it was meant to, it would be a better part of the game than it is. And I know it sounds obvious, but it's also true. It's such a shame. I hope they can sort of do something similar and actually have it be of weight in roll call potentially. But yeah, it's just a shame.
New dreadnought species.
It would be cool, but it's not in season 5, and they're not going to start planning season 6 until they get roll call out the door. See that? Okay, that is there because that mentions dreadnoughts in direct relation, not in direct relation, but in the same sentence as season 6. So there you go. Evidence.
Yeah.
Hope you can see where this is
But
going.
it will occur just in a very distant future.
They seem to use this wording where we're not going to start planning season 6 until for like specific things. So I think that's not like this is going to be in season 6, but it's more like it's. I think that is a way of them acknowledging that it's something that's on the big list of like potential stuff. Yeah, so it definitely is some kind of evidence, and it's not the last one of those. So can move on.
All right. Old weapon models as anniversary frameworks.
It was considered at some point. Aaron likes this idea, and I like the idea as well, for a lot of reasons. Now, not all of the weapons kind of have this though. That's the thing, especially some of the newer ones, but they also kind of do, and just some kind of like almost retro, like low poly sort of framework as kind of like a throwback anniversary thing would be a really cool idea, especially because, I mean, I don't really see them doing anything particularly special for like the next anniversary, for example, but this is like the kind of thing that presents itself as an option. It would essentially be like stock, but sort of somehow even more simplified. But adding it for like a more specific reason would be pretty neat. Especially like the old minigun. The old minigun looks like shit, and I would love to like use it as like a framework.
It'd be interesting to see all the like paint jobs and how they would interact with such an ancient fucking model.
Yeah, I mean, I would like. I don't know what the I don't know what it would be for some of the Gen 3 weapons though, because I'm sure they looked pretty different at some stages. But like the oldest form that I know of some of them is when they showed like off the very old prototypes where there was just like other things, which would turn it would turn like the crossbow into a flare gun, I think. And I don't even like. I don't even hate that for some reason. Because then we get traversal tool customization.
In a way. In a spiritual way.
Yeah. Because also the sludge pump would be the platform gun in that old system. The shard diffractor would be the cryo cannon, which is just stupid. Which is just, that's not that great. So that's not.
All right. Move the bandana to the eyebrow category.
No.
No.
What do you mean
Fuck
no?
you.
Fuck you. That's why I included it though, because they said no. Because they said no. Now remember, this does not come from the highest authority at Ghost Ship, Tyler, and everyone else needs to remember that as well. However, it still grinds my gears. It's still...
Yeah.
Because I hope you agree. I think we've kind of distilled our sort of wants out of like potential cosmetic system changes down to this one being the main one that we really care about. There's a lot of other stuff we've suggested in the past that we've kind of just sort of either thrown out the window or just are holding our breath for, like Roadcore potentially. But this is the one thing I think we still believe needs to change about Deep Rock's cosmetics, right?
Yeah. Things that are clearly only affect your eye area and being moved into the eyebrow section.
Yeah.
And then also having a couple other cosmetics put in there that would look cool.
Oh yeah, exactly. It opens up. Yeah, it opens things up as well.
Think, yeah. The eyebrow being called eyebrow limits it heavily. It should be just called like eyewear or something.
Yeah, or just eyeline slot almost.
Yeah.
I want them. I want Eric's glasses. I can't remember his full name. Eric from One Piece.
I literally have no idea.
Remember Eric? He had the sickle fruit.
Filler. That'll do it.
Oh yeah, it is filler, isn't it? Oh, we'll talk about that later. I've got some thoughts. But yeah, it's sort of a last gasp of our sort of demands. Also, it's not just because it annoys me, like things like that. It's just think about it, guys. Everyone think about it, especially if anyone's watching from the old studio. Like the original, the OG basic goggles, right? I just imagine being able to combine them with any hairstyle or any hat. Godly, not necessarily look wise. I just mean a godly just level of granularity that is achieved through something relatively simple. For how much it would just expand the customization options. It would not be easy, I imagine, but it would also be. It's one of those things that would definitely be worth it, unless it's impossible, and I don't believe that. So, you know, but I think that's the last we'll say on that for a while. So let's move on to the next page.
New Dreadnought fights.
They thought about it, but it's not going to be considered for a long time with Roadcore taking the stage. They thought about it. All I'm saying is that one is, I think they definitely have like potential early, like in drawing only, by the way, not like in game. In drawing only, I probably have a couple like designs even, and that idea excites me. So you know. Actually, you know, let's move on because I actually really like this next one. I want to talk about this.
More unique pickaxe sets like the Chillax.
In fact, I'm not going to read the response. The point is, the Chillax might be the best holiday cosmetic they ever added. Maybe?
An odd statement to think.
Yeah, but my point is, and I know that you agree with this, it's a really good sort of box of potential is that kind of thing for holiday cosmetics. Like, you know, Halloween. It's obvious. It's so easy. You know, we want that scythe pickaxe. Yeah, exactly. I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but you get the point. Or even honestly, even just for Christmas, obviously the candy cane thing as well. I'm just saying, I think that actually did that was a really over the top Christmas, and unfortunately they got carried away with themselves. But if they're able to actually show some restraint, it showed that there is potential for really nice other cosmetics to be added to holidays aside from just headgear. I just want to sort of outline that very specifically. I feel like when we talked about it before, we've always been a little bit more vitriolic or frustrated, but I just want to say, despite the fact that it was too much in that event, it did show, it proved something that I would like to be sort of re-tapped into. And I don't think the costumes tap into that themselves. I think it's the pickaxe and the Bosco framework that tapped into that. What more could be done with holiday cosmetics? So just think about it, guys. Just think about it.
Back to us. All right.
Oh, we'll get back to you. That was almost a stream that we did, I think. But obviously there won't be any drawing streams for a while.
No. Changes to Reatomizer.
No plans. They'd need feedback on what's wrong with it before deciding whether or not to change it. I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It doesn't fucking do anything. It's just a boring use of overclock. That's what's wrong with it. I feel like that's the kind of thing that should be able to be established through internal testing anyway. Personally, that could be a misguided statement in terms of how like work is distributed at the studio, but Reatomizer is the kind of overclock that is just really just unremarkable and boring. I'm surprised it didn't get any changes when they reworked the coil gun, frankly. And sometimes I'm a little bit troubled by what they see as worth sort of paying attention to as far as balance goes, because we've gotten so little of it recently. We've actually gotten some. So I do wonder where their thought process comes from in terms of choosing things, because Reatomizer, I don't think anyone... And I do have suggestions, first of all. I'll be quick about this. Reatomizer, if it had some kind of, like, memory status effect thing, where it just, like, basically retains the last status effect it, like, touched or something like that, and it just can use it. Something like that, even. Which obviously probably is a bit more complicated than it needs to be. But I'm just saying, it sucks. So... You know, and they've taken overclocks. Look, it's literally mentioned like a couple lines down, right? They've just taken overclocks that aren't really used and just turned them into something else anyway. So maybe take that approach. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
What are you saying? All right. Update, rival tech, or life of phage.
Never say never, but they usually explore a theme while it's the current theme and then move on to the next one. Now, are we opposed to them ever touching those again? Or, because I feel like we've before have said, like, it's actually not, it shouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. But I also don't know if I believe that or not. No, it's more so just whether or not people would accept it. It's just more so.
Specifically, what you're referring to is that I knew they had to go back to Rockbox because it was fucking terrible, but they shouldn't do it next season because we shouldn't get a Rockbox Part 2. And obviously, I was right, and it aged poorly though still. But so I said that they should come back to it because it needs to be come back to. But as much as I think it's still fine, there's nothing that really needs to be done to them in an official sense. Because they can can still go back, change their stats and so on and so forth. That is not that should be fine as far as like enemy balancing is concerned. They shouldn't have to worry about that. But like an update would be going back and like adding a new enemy to them, or like I don't know, adding a new faction part of them, or like I don't know, biome versions.
A combination of the two, even, which would be a real cop out, but would be kind of cool. Infected robots, but yeah, I think the only way they're going to come back to them actually is going to be in a different game, and that might not be Rogue Core. I mean, look, I feel like Survivor might end up getting some of the robot stuff, and Rogue Core 2, as in that's genuinely from like a weird sort of like narrative perspective. It would make more sense to. It would actually make more specifically for the rivals. It would make more sense to involve them in Rogue Core than DRG again in like an updated way, where in Rogue Core the robots could sort of have withdrawn since we sort of dealt with them in season 2, and then like have taken advantage of the fact that DRG has gone further down and sort of is going to go there as well because the DRG companies opened, paved the way for that kind of thing.
The company is taking like a huge L, right? Like their entire operations in a deeper level have been wiped out. They might come in to swoop up where they've like left off, basically.
Yeah, and it paved the way to sort of make more sort of intricate enemies as well, potentially, that are sort of smarter and sort of work with Rogue Core's gameplay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be. I think because I think people wouldn't mind really. Like, if it takes like a couple years, not Rockbox. They would mind that would take even longer. But Rivals coming back would be, if anything, nostalgic in like Rogue Core. Like, oh my god, the Rivals are here.
Could be. Like, yeah, because like I'm just thinking because obviously we know Rogue Core is going to come out next year, and that would have been at least 4 years. And if robots get into it, they're definitely not going to be there at launch. So if Rivals ever make their way into Rogue Core, it could end up being like 5 years since they were introduced that happens. So there genuinely could be an element of nostalgia to it. It's like, oh my god, robots. But they're like, they're new, kind of. It's like, whoa.
They'll still be like variants
But
or
yeah,
something,
like
right?
literally, like seeing like a new rival tech thing would be like kind of weird and maybe nice. Not right now, not on launch, and probably not in season 6 either. But um, maybe one day. Rockpox though, it's a bit of a different story, isn't it? Right?
Because there's nothing new about Rockpox.
Still,
It
I
would
mean,
just be an enemy we already have being Rockpox, which is not interesting or cool or unique. Fuck Rockpox. It was a terrible idea. Fuck 'em.
oh, not the concept, but maybe the idea of
Oh,
implementation. All right, move on.
it's all blurry. I can't read shit, dick.
I don't need to be so vulgar.
I'm a vulgar person, Harry. Just look at my shit, dick.
Just look at. No, don't worry.
New machine events.
No plans. Maybe one day. You're telling me there's a chance. You're telling me.
They're leading you on, Harry.
I'm trying to lead you on.
They're never
Actually, I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, it's their problem, really. It's not my fault they have terrible content prioritization.
They actually, when they kind of do. We'll see. Obviously, Roku might be a completely different story. As far as that kind of thing goes, because it's just gonna be a completely new platform of like features and gameplay. But they kind of do, except for season 5. Like to be fair,
Well, I think they woke up a little bit then. Realized how fucking shitty their decisions have been. But didn't have enough time to add the actual important stuff.
Whoa! Bold claims.
We didn't get a perk rework. I'm not gonna mince my fucking words. It's still that was still the most important thing we needed. They didn't have enough time. All right, bring back manual guidance cutoff.
Aaron has heard any discussion about it. Not out of the question, but we shouldn't hold our breaths. I mean, why not? Am I mistaken in thinking you're slightly in this camp? I mean, I know it wouldn't be strong for you, but because of where you are. But yeah, see no reason not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
It's
fairly simple.
other types of core spawn.
This is just here as a reminder. Obviously, people might see the core spawn in Deep Rock and be like, "Oh, there's only one." There won't be, and genuinely, this is actually just because it's like the only thing that we really know in terms of like sort of current sort of rogue core stuff is that they're expanding that family to an extent, and it'll probably be like their main sort of group of enemies. I just find that very exciting, and I have no doubt we will see. I have no doubt we'll see a couple actually in Deep Rock's future, but it will never be. I think Roku will hold the cards as far as the course. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Roku will hold the cards, but I don't think it's going to be like 100% with holding though either.
It literally says it is.
Yeah, but you know how they are.
All right, overclocks for secondary weapons.
They're not making any promises. Planning for season 6 won't start until Roku goes into early access. There it is again, and I think I'm actually right about this sort of language thing. I mean, when it comes to the secondary weapon overclocks, that's something we don't really need verbal confirmation of, though. That's on the list, right? That is so beyond obvious. At the same time, it's why I want to sort of bring up another thing that sometimes annoys me a little bit is how. I get that they have to be indecisive because I understand their approach. Their approach is basically we will not say that something is coming unless it literally is, right? Unless it's literally like made and we know that it's going to be something that's going to be released. But this is the kind of thing where personally I believe that they should be able to say it, you know? They should be able to be like, well, yeah, obviously. But they just can't because they can't make decisions like that. And I find it a little bit annoying, frankly. It's the same, by the way, for the perks. Those are two things, in my opinion, they should be able to say. Because what it comes down to is, if you say it now, then you don't have to make that decision later. You don't have to waste time on the decision making. It's not something that needs to be talked about. You know, the whether or not you do it or not is not the part that needs to be discussed. It's how you're going to do it. It's not. You know?
The thing is, Harry, is I think there's a difference because the secondary overclocks are a given, but if we get Season 6, but I think we will. But fucking, I think the perk rework, we may never see it. I think that is a fact. I think at this point that like there's a good chance that they will just decide we cannot figure out how we want to improve it, and it's too late. I think that is a thing. So I don't think they'll ever announce that until they know an actual solution. But
Yeah,
the secondary ones are. Yeah.
I mean, it's already too late though, so I don't really factor that in. Almost, it's like it'd be weird to change the system at this point anyway. So you might as well just lean into that. It's so old. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Okay, we are more than halfway through, I think. Oh no, we're actually okay. Yeah, we are. Go on. Oh, same thing. Do you want to skip over that because it's literally just we just basically just said what we would say. It's the same thing.
They can work on that for Season 6, but planning for that won't start until
It's the exact same language, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overheat indicator on the aim cursor.
No plans. Mark thinks it would be sick. Now, this is also this mod exists, by the way, but that's important as well. So I think this would be for any weapon uses an overheat or the other thing, because the cryo cannons one isn't overheat, but it basically be for all those weapons like cryo cannon, drac, minigun, wave cooker. I think that's all of them though. But it will basically be something on the cursor on the crosshair that indicates your heat. Which could be genuinely a really cool accessibility thing, as in that's where you would put it. That's because that's the kind of thing where you might actually not want it all the time, but it would still be really great. But I think because a mod for it exists already, we're looking at a very similar situation to the drill anglometer, right? Where that's a mod that should be taken into account and added, especially because it's not the kind of thing that we can get. You know, it leaves out console people, not just console people, anyone who plays with the Microsoft version or the PlayStation version. So, and as long as they don't think that it's like an overpowered thing to have, then that's the kind of mod that should get translated into the main game, I think. So,
all right. Big terminal for guilds.
big terminal. They don't want to bring too much attention to the unions. They break every once in a while and aren't available on consoles anyway. Fair point. Now, am I correct in saying you like recently said something about how they should remove it entirely? I think you did.
I don't remember anything I say.
PC. I don't think that's entirely true.
I think I said gut the system because it's dead, it barely works, and then replace it with something that does work for everyone.
Exactly.
I think that
so it's actually very fair they don't want to bring too much attention to the unions, but that's why it should be sort of rebuilt to be something that you would want to put some attention on, potentially. That's definitely rogue core potential as well, though. Although I guess the Reclaimers being their own faction kind of makes it a bit weird. Whatever. Move on.
More assignments past rank 100.
No plans at the moment, and very unlikely because so there are assignments in the game. If anyone's sort of out of stage, you might have forgotten this by now. There are assignments that just reward straight up sort of cosmetic sets, and they go on for a while in sort of a hierarchy of levels. The level requirement needed to do the assignment goes up each time, up until 100, where you get the assignment to unlock the Black Crag paint job. And then once you do that, there's the Scale Brigade one, but that's also rank 100. Which kind of tells me if that principle is still in play, you're probably not. Even if they were to add an assignment, first of all, it's kind of unlikely they would anyway. But it seems like they refused to do it anyway because they already had a chance. It was like, no, 100's the cap. I still am in my really deeply inhibited desire part of my brain holding out for like a real late stage assignment, and you know what I mean, right? I mean like level 1000 kind of thing, that kind of stupid bullshit, right? But it's extremely unlikely, and it's not like a big prioritization either.
Boost Molly's speed in deep scan escape sequence.
No. In Deep Scan, getting to the drop pod is trivial. The sequence is instead about holding ground, waiting for Molly. And now the reason I included this is because it tells us that our assessment of that of the Deep Scan extraction phase is entirely correct. I remember we kind of like it would either have been when playing it or doing the mission tier list where we established that our stance that the deep scan extraction sequence is constructed around it being extremely easy to get to the drop pod, right? But then you have to wait. Waiting is actually part of it. And that tells us that not only was that thought about, but I think that makes it cooler. That makes it a much more inherently nuanced sort of part of the mission, even in and of itself, where no mission really does that. It's either get to the drop pod, or wait around in an area you're already in, which is salvage op, which isn't as interesting as being given these overpowered jet boots that you get to the drop pod in a much more trivial but also much more fun way, and then you get to use them to hold out as well. Which is why I would say, as cool as it is to know how deliberate that was, I think that's why they can also justify making that extraction sequence like one of the more enemy intensive ones as well. They could throw a lot more shit at you, I think, during that stage, right?
Yeah. I mean,
if that's the point, that's probably the main way to make it actually engaging.
It wouldn't matter either way, though, would it? Let's be honest.
Then it would just make it more fun, then, wouldn't it? If it doesn't matter either way.
Mission. They don't want you to die at the very end.
No, but it's still in a good place, and it confirms that one of the extra nuances about Deep Scan is also a very deliberate one. Just another reminder that they've still got it in them.
All right. Balance changes to overclocks.
Balancing will continue, but barring glaring issues, they want to minimize the amount of work on DRG to free up resources for Rogue Core. Obviously, very understandable, but I want to point out, obviously, we've been shown from the most recent patch that there is the capacity to receive sort of miscellaneous sort of balance changes that aren't punctuated by a big update, which is why I find some small concern in that really one of the only it basically in a vacuum that patch indicates that the only glaring issue they see is Neurolasso, and I think that's very far from the truth. So I want that to be sort of
very far from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It was as pointless, if not worse, than Reatomizer. If we were to mention it.
Yeah, it's up there, but it's not. It's just not the only one. That's all. It's close actually. It's closer than you think, but I think glaring issues. There are more of them. I think Reatomizer is one of them. I guess the idea is sort of ones that are also downgrades, which there aren't that many. But even then, like most people would agree on something like microflechettes, that kind of thing. It's just kind of weird. I want a proper balance pass at some point, but it's probably not going to happen for a while. Oh well. Second to last page. Look, I think that's the last. Oh, it's actually not the last Dreadnought one.
More Dreadnought types, e.g., Elemental.
Probably no. During development, Praetorians got variations, and a Dreadnought was a Fire Praetorian on steroids. Fire is kind of thing. Now, I like that because what that does, it tells us a bit more about the Dreadnought's specificity, and they do have a fire proclivity, right? That is actually a very deliberate thing, which means that potential future Dreadnoughts would either have to feed into that or sort of break the mold in a way that makes sense. So we probably wouldn't just get like a randomly electric based Dreadnought. So it's kind of like the idea of like, would you still keep the fire theming, but how would you make it unique on top of that? I can imagine maybe that adds some small hindrances to getting more creative with Dreadnought designs if they know that Dreadnoughts are supposed to have like a fiery sort of element to them. I don't know, but it's kind of cool to know that is actually a very sort of inbuilt part of their sort of identity, I suppose.
Yeah. It's gone again.
Oh. Do. Go.
More holiday-based drinks.
Maybe. Unlikely. um, but seriously though, why not? Getting best worst beer was actually a really cool thing to happen, sort of out of nowhere, and it was a good way to reintroduce Oktoberfest, of course. But there's still room for more. If there's any, I think at this point, if there's any reason to add more drinks, it is for that kind of thing. It just sort of adds a little bit, just that extra accent to the events, and we already know the one, but we don't need to dote on that. I want to dote on the next thing because this actually annoys me.
Tuxedo armor set.
Mickle probably wouldn't allow that to happen. Why? Why? Sometimes they really just don't want to give us good things. Sometimes, and it's the specificity of it I find very distracting. You know, it's like, why not tuxedos? What's the problem with that?
Does he not want the dwarfs to look dapper? Is that what this is?
You know,
Is that
why
what this
why
is
can't we have
about?
tuxedos? Why can't we have a normal top hat, right? You know, that kind of thing. Irksome. But I think maybe he'll break his spell, his curse he's put upon himself for, like, I don't know, the next time they would do an anniversary DLC. But that's that's a while away. But seriously, that's what I'm saying. Is it going to take something like that to break the spell? Maybe.
I'll probably just find some other random bit of armor to put on them. Alright, loadout preview when joining.
Aaron likes the idea. Could be a nice quality of life addition. Yes, it fucking would be. This is something that I genuinely think the game needs. It wouldn't even benefit me because of how almost nigh exclusively I play solo, right? But I think it's just genuinely important because what it does, the main thing would be if when you are joining, if you can see what people are using when you're loading into the game, that can actually inform your decision about what loadout you pick. So as long as it's doable, it's very worth doing. I think it would really actually improve the multiplayer experience in a way that is, like, unexpectedly sort of impactful. But it wouldn't it shouldn't be, like, trivial. I think it makes sense that this would be a very good thing to add. So yeah, better fast track season 6 so we can get this early.
Alright. Scale power attack damage to full height.
Very unlikely for DRG, but that could totally be a perk in Rogue Core. Yes, it could be. That would be awesome. I hope that happens. But for DRG itself, I hope the same thing. Would be a great to actually, maybe give the pickaxe something else, another upgrade, or maybe that could be included in another perk. A new passive perk. Maybe it could be Berserker's passive or something like that.
Maybe, but I think it's worth mentioning power attack confirmed in Rogue Core.
Yeah, not surprising, but fair enough,
isn't it? How similar are you, like, running it on? Because I'm still thinking that it's going to be, like, somewhat different. By the sounds of it, it is going to be fucking identical to Deep Rock in, like, all but, like, 3 ways, really. You have varying weapons, and the whole, like, perk class thing. Otherwise, it seems like it's going to be basically identical.
Well, so much of Rogue Core's, like, systems are going to come from, like, what you didn't pick, though, going into it. You're already going into any given run as, like, a normal dwarf, I suppose, aside from, like, your very initial choices. And one of those things is always just going to be a pickaxe. And that's the thing, though, they'll probably set it apart. There'll probably be stuff in Rogue Core that plays with the pickaxes far more than Deep Rock does because of, like, the nature of being, like, a roguelite. There'll probably be, like, a lot of, like, weird sort of pickaxe upgrades even along the way. So that will definitely open up some ideas. Well, it won't. It'll be because those ideas will probably be contained to row core. But also, I also disagree, but that's not the point.
All right. Fully hatched dreadnought.
No plans. Not until they start work on season 6 anyway. But that if we are going to go with this weird sort of pattern recognition, I guess that means that it being fully grown is also on the list. So take that as you will. I still don't know if I think that's actually a wise idea or not. Because I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not Dreadnought Queen is something they need to do.
It then wouldn't just be a variant in an elimination. It would become its own enemy, and then very likely its own game mode if it is a fully hatched dreadnought.
Well, I think it. Well, if it is, then I do think that's how it should work as well. I mean, I have more sort of broad desires for what that would look like, but that's far too lofty of a discussion to have here. The point is, it seems like the fully grown one is not out of question, which is kind of crazy because sometimes they say stuff that indicates it will never happen, but we'll see.
All right, it's blurry.
Feeling that.
Custom set of mutators for a mission.
Obvious candidate for a mod, and it shows again why modding is important. Overall, I definitely agree. I think you'd be entering into a weird state if you could pick any amount of any combination of mutators. But I do think players, now that they've shown a possibility to like expand and add a level of sort of actual like customization to the difficulty, the ability to take a mission and add as many warnings as you want to it. Why not? Why not let people inflict that pain on themselves across the board? You know, as console players, we experience enough pain already. So why not let us experience more? Basically,
it would be a weird thing to add, though. You can't deny that. Like that is not. That is a modded feature.
Like, yeah, but I think season 5 contained a couple things that sort of border on that anyway, where it felt like them sort of pulling back some of the roadblocks they'd set up for themselves. Like Hazard 5 Plus is kind of like a really wild breaking down of a barrier that was there before, I think, for them, where difficulty beyond Hazard 5 was so restricted to mods and so like developed inside mods themselves. They had so many things going on with mods. They had things like this. They had obviously Hazard 6 and 7, like way more than that, like times 2 times like these numbers. It was so developed within mods that almost gave Ghost Ship reason to not bother going beyond Hazard 5, but they did it anyway. And I just think so. I think there is more potential for mod-esque features than ever at the moment. So that's what I'm saying.
All right, that's what you're saying. More titles past Lord of the Deep.
Would be cool. It's one of those things they haven't gotten around to yet. Fair, because I would say this is low priority, right? But it is one of those things that has a huge amount of potential at the same time. You know, put it behind perks, obviously, right? But and it's also not the kind of thing where unlike perks, it's an old system, right? A very old one that hasn't been changed for a while. But unlike perks, it's not the kind of one that's aching, right? The only way it's aching is just aching with potential. That's all. It's not something where it's actually kind of impacting the game. It's just like, but I feel like if they found the time to dedicate any amount of time to the title system, I think it could spiral into being something really cool. It just shouldn't be prioritized above things that are like issues. But it still ranks fairly highly for me as things I would love to see like tinkered with, though. Maybe sandwiches are the same. For you.
We don't need that anymore. Now they've added the 5 Plus.
That's actually true.
Oh yeah. But yeah, sandwiches in the Abyss Bar.
No, it's a bar, not a restaurant. So let's
Fuck
add,
you. There's a fridge.
so let's add the canteen then.
There's a fridge. What's in the fridge? Just beers?
I think
Probably,
I think
actually.
the Rocore ship will probably have like a more like inbuilt sort of kitchen, especially because it's more so like their ship. You know, I hope that we'll have like more access to like those kind of facilities. You know, there's not going to be any weird shit where it feels like you're basically like a dwarven clone who's being like rebuilt every time you die. I think the Claimer ship will feel more like their ship, so have things they need, like their own kitchen and place to like sit and eat and stuff like that. But yeah, we want to see those sandwiches. They're such a weird like old thing that people sandwiches have like the same like luster as Carl at this point. It's kind of crazy.
That's because they're mentioned in passing often. Like,
Yeah,
the fellas are like, oh, sandwiches this, sandwiches that. And then it's like when you get some more ammo and some mods, it's like, oh, you're going to lose some sandwich space. Like, they did it for themselves.
I might have to get the door.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't.
All right. Balance around Hazard 5.
No, they're not going to balance game around a small part of the player base. Now, I wanted to include this because it tells us something that's fairly important, which is that they don't balance around Hazard 5, which can lead to a lot of discrepancies between what like someone like me thinks needs to be tweaked and what Ghost Ship does. Because the truth is, 90% of things are viable on every difficulty below Hazard 5. The point there, though, being 90%, I do think there is stuff that still isn't worth using. Like microflechettes. There is some stuff, even though it's all usable below Hazard 5, it's still the kind of question of like, yeah, but is this actually fun? And not every overclock is fun, even if it can be used, right? So just keep that in mind. But I also understand why this sort of this approach is why we probably don't get actually as much balancing as we might want, is because the things that we think are essential actually aren't, because they're not essential to Hazard 4 and below. So I think it's just important. It's almost important for me to keep that in mind, on a personal level, to sort of quell like the many balancing desires that I have, and I just kind of have to check myself, be like, okay, but it's just the kind of thing that where people could at least have fun with it on lower difficulties. If there's no potential for even fun, then I would start to point out problems. Although silly man that I am, I can't think of like. Can you think of off the top of your head an overclock that is like anti-fun?
Sticky fuel.
I knew you were going to say that.
All right.
But that's also like overpowered below Hazard 5.
That is cosmetic.
There might or might not be a cosmetic like that in the internal builds. That terrifies me.
It definitely is. The mods, the devs definitely have cat ears just casually. That's totally a thing.
Would they ever add them?
If they get paid enough, probably.
Yeah.
Celebration. Supporter DLC 3 with a golden leaf lovers mug.
They can't ask this much from the community. They want their DLCs to sell. So yeah, good joke. But question: if that does happen, well, no, sorry, it will. Right? If we get to the 10th anniversary and they haven't like literally sunsetted the game, even if they have, we would probably still get a like something like this. What would be the appropriate drink though? Because I don't think it would be leaf lovers, for obvious reasons and non-obvious.
It is leaf lovers. It did the other two.
I know, but
it will be leaf.
Well, so yeah, but technically, randomizer is one of those is standard issue. Got it. Okay, so it would basically actually make leaf lovers just instantly obliterate you, as well. It would make it alcoholic, I think.
Maybe.
Like to the point of absurdity. You would basically be like flashbanged with the most extreme drunk effect for like a second, but it's so powerful that it wakes you up at the same time, so you don't have to pass out and go to the med bay. But yeah, honestly, on sort of like second thought, it still would be Leaf Lovers because it's such a like ingrained sort of joke, but also like there would actually be, even though it would be half ironic, there would also be like a pretty like, half of it would also be pretty like actually kind of sentimental to acknowledge Leaf Lover in that kind of way, you know, at that time, like 10 years
like
on.
nobody fucking orders oily oafs, and yet that's what got it this time round, right? Like,
Yeah, and the problem with that is Oily Oafs. I think,
sure.
I mean, it's nice, but I think we're in the boat of like the original Oily Oaf like mug is like Kino, you know, it's top tier stuff, like that classic Stein or tankard, whatever you would call it, perfect, you know. So
Yeah.
Leaf Lovers, that's a boring mug, you know. Put it in something crazy, like a chalice.
That they did. All right, oxygen tanks on pump jacks.
That's for Mike to decide. Maybe they'll catch him on a day when he's feeling charitable. Yeah, do it. It's like those kind of missions are kind of weird. On-site refining and point extraction when it comes to low oxygen, especially point extraction. I don't really know what you could do, but on-site refining is kind of lending itself to being a bit more interesting with that mutator. So just slap him on there. It shouldn't be too hard. But yeah, unless you heavily disagree, which I don't think you do. Which I don't think.
This walks outside the rig.
No, the space outside is a set piece. We're not supposed to go outside, but we can. But we can't we? But maybe for road core, if the ramrod is like a more fully designed exterior, for example, maybe we'll be able to go like take a little stroll on top, something like that, and just stare out into the nothingness of space. But for
That
now,
would be a vibe.
I do think it's actually the current implement. It would be. I do think the current implementation is very actually important. Like people trying to find workarounds, I think is actually like an important part of the game almost at this point. And obviously the main way to do it being through a beer where it feels like you shouldn't really be doing it anyway. I think that stuff is kind of important to retain, but maybe the future holds weirder things. Look at that. Oh. Oh, I almost just shed OBS to you. Let's not do that.
It would have worked. Halloween beer that makes you zoom around and talk fast.
The Halloween update is already done, and it doesn't include a new beer. But hey, maybe someday. There you go. But also, what would a Halloween beer even be? You know, pumpkin juice, and it wouldn't make you talk fast either.
It sounds like crack.
It's just
sounds
yeah.
like
It's just,
mug o' crack.
mug of crack.
Halloween drink. Yeah.
Crack open a beer.
Yeah.
Cracker open.
But with pirate hat for next year's beach party event.
The hat for next year's summer event is already designed. It's a cool one, but it's not a pirate hat. So yeah, we've already been through this though on the podcast.
Yeah, that was the one I was there for.
Yeah. Well, what does this mean? Yeah. Well, we've already had the discussion. Basically, it means that we don't really know how far ahead they've actually made these hats, but we know it's pretty far ahead at least based on this. So good on them. Yeah, and that's an important thing actually because that's really something that we don't want them wasting any time on. But then it makes you think, well, what is it at this point then, if not a pirate hat? Well, you know, this time they just put an octopus on our heads, so frankly,
yeah, it's likely to be some other marine life.
Yeah, like an actual marine.
Yeah,
just sitting on your head.
If that ends up what it actually is, then that is going to be crazy.
Well, it wouldn't be though, would it? It wouldn't be.
Well, maybe if they
Could
do
be a
the
starfish.
bit.
Oh, I want a starfish. You know, like in Suicide Squad, the Starro the Conqueror. where he puts the stars on people's faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
All right. I'll get on it.
Thank you. Last one.
As 5+ enemies 2 allows 2 nemesises.
We shouldn't say that out loud. Mike might hear it. Yeah, very niche, and so we're not going to let this spiral into another discussion about more Hazard 5 features, because that's not what this is. But it's a very specific thing where, first of all, if you were, for example, playing a rival presence mission, it could spawn nemesis anyway, or nemesis anyway, and I would assume that increasing the more enemies factor would mean they could spawn even more frequently. But as a baseline, something that can happen in any mission is a nemesis spawning from the start. The idea that having more enemies on like the factor of 2 means that if there's going to be a nemesis spawn from the start of the mission, would actually mean there's 2. I think that would be just really stupid and funny, and why not? Because it's just,
I think you got to think about then the repercussions, because you can't just add like one enemy that spawns in naturally gets 2 of. It'd have to be fair game, right?
yeah,
Enemies 2 means enemies 2.
yes,
That's 2 golden loot bugs. That's 2 holy hoarders.
that's 2
That's
Kratos
2
detonators,
detonators.
that's 2 core logs.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. I want that. If that could do that, I want that. It could even be more appropriate for its own factor, you know, special enemies. That means we could up like the amount of bosses that even spawn from like an egg, like on an elimination, that kind of thing. Fuck it. I want to enter that kind of stupid territory because it's kind of hard for me to push the Hazard 5 features up to like the maximum anyway, but if it can like be that kind of ridiculous, I'm all for it. That is unlikely though. It's
Really.
yeah. What isn't unlikely is that the video is going to end in a couple minutes because we're done.
Yay!
So that was everything.
For watching.
All right, okay. That was everything from the last 6 months of Dev Q&A. Make sure you comment your favorite bit, your favorite reveal. It's a little bit of engagement there because we're YouTubers. Yeah.
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 Okay, now you don't tell me anything.
Feel free to ask your own questions. We can do our own Dev Q&A next time. I do want to do an actual Q&A at some point for some reason. The one where people are allowed to ask like anything.
What, from us?
Yeah, from us.
Oh, that would have been probably a better 1,000 subscriber special than drinking something icky thing. But
Are you still feeling ill effects from that?
I'm still a bit drunk from all the alcohol.
There's this fat guy who's walking down my road. I saw him earlier. He like walked past. He's like clearly going for like a run or like a power walk or something. And I'm just thinking, you go get it, mate. Like go you.
Yeah.
Like, actually, anyone who sees that, like, I guess people might even call you a little bit derogatory for calling him a fat guy, but like, shut up. But anyone who sees like a fat person in, like the gym or something and thinks, ha, what a fat ass. Fuck you.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? There is nothing better than people trying to improve themselves.
Yeah, context is important. Don't call someone fat if they're like in the gym or running. But do if they're waist deep in Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Waist deep.
That is
waist deep. I want to be that. I want to be that.
You fat bastard.
I'm not fat. I'm just well fed. I'm not fat. I'm just well built. That's what he said. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So unless you want to add fat people to Deep Rock, I think we're done here.
What do you mean by that? Yeah, we are. Anyway, okay. As usual, if you enjoyed this, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you want to see more videos like this, and you want to stay on top of everything to do with Deep Rock and Roadcore, then please click the bell as well. And I think now we thank our members every video now, or every miscellaneous video now. So thank you, Fox Scoot, our member. And that'll be that. We'll see you. I'll see you on Tuesday. We'll see you together next Saturday for a podcast. Who knows what that's going to be about? Maybe nothing. Maybe.
I'm gonna decide.
What? Well, it'll partially be about what we want to see on the horizons, I guess. But sure,
No,
Tyler can decide.
It's gonna be about whatever I say it's gonna be about.
If you actually bring a subject, I will be so flummoxed that we'll have to do it.
Oh no! Now there's pressure.
There's no pressure, but
there's so much
the only pressure will
Harry.
be on me if you actually come up with something to like use it.
I can do something. Look, I'll come up with a better one than you right now, right in this very instant. We're gonna talk about which dwarf is best. Boom. That's spicy. That'll rake in all the views.
Is that Deep Rock exclusive?
No.
Okay. Dwalin.
Incorrect. Wait, Dwalin? No,
Yeah,
it's still
Dwalin.
incorrect, but that wasn't the one I thought you were thinking.
Do you have an answer in mind?
The enchantment dwarf from Dragon
Enchantment!
Age.
No. No.
Who solos the verse?
Why is there not like a? I like Baldur's Gate 3, but why it feels like and as big as it is, it still feels like it's missing a lot. Like, why is there no like main party dwarf or halfling character?
Or the other one? Isn't there 3 of them?
Or no, there's none. But there's none of them though.
Yeah, they're all just humans. Or like a half elf, or an elf,
Or
or a
Karlach,
tiefling.
I guess.
Yeah, it's like they're not very adventurous, really.
All I'm saying is that game's not as interesting as people claim.
Not as diverse.
No. I mean, the most diverse thing is always like your character, or actually even mine. You know, where at the very least, I can say we don't play into that fucking amazing stereotype, by the way, of like 90% of people pick like human male fighter.
I actually cannot I cannot get into a character if they're like a human.
I can,
Like,
but at the very least, my instincts immediately drew me to. As soon as we like set up our sort of proper playthrough we're doing, my instincts were so automatic. What I did, it was just like Dragonborn Paladin. It's obvious. It's so obvious.
Yeah, and because like I overdo orcs so fucking much, like I have like 2 orc characters in Baldur's Gate alone. I had to think of something else, and what did I come up with? A green dwarf. I just made the dwarf a green, and that worked out. So that Grolk, my dwarf from Baldur's Gate, he's on the list of best dwarfs.
Well, even with my other playthrough I'm doing, I didn't want to be like too crazy. I didn't want to be like a. I mean, I could have been an orc. I wouldn't have hated that, but I didn't want to be like a tiefling or a Githyanki, for example. I was like, I don't mind maybe keeping this real simple. But I'm still a drow. They are rancid. I'm still a drow, though. You know, I'm not just a human.
Yeah.
Because it's so boring.
Can't stand humans.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we love Deep Rock, because it's just you don't even get the option. You don't even get the option.
You're just a dwarf, and ain't no one fucking complaining.
Yeah, except you can't be a woman. Anyway, that's it. Bye.